everything in Oz, is what we realized, has to have delight. We had to define what Oz is. So in Alice in Wonderland, Wonderland is supposed to sort of confuse you to insanity, and Neverland is supposed to be a place where your childhood and what you think of as a child. So then what is Oz? And for me, Oz is a place of delight and distraction. So you don't have to think about the hard things.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, the story of The Wizard of Oz is reimagined in director Jon M. Chu's musical fantasy, Wicked. Based on the Tony Award-winning musical, the film is set years before Dorothy's arrival in Oz and follows the unlikely college friendship between popular girl Glinda and the misunderstood Elphaba. As their lives begin to take very different paths, an encounter with the famous Wizard of Oz puts their relationship at a crossroads. In addition to Wicked, Chu's other directorial credits include the feature films In the Heights, Crazy Rich Asians, Now You See Me Too, Step Up 2, The Streets, G.I. Joe Retaliation, and Justin Bieber Never Say Never, and episodes of Good Trouble and Home Before Dark. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in New York, Chu spoke with director Shawn Levy about filming Wicked. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
I'm happy that I sense the vibe in this room is going to be comfortable for me, because I was going to apologize up front that I can't be a clinical sort of neutral moderator on this one, because I really, really love this movie. I really love this movie. So I'm Shawn. This is Jon.
Hi, everybody.
And I guess let's start with, I'm sure there's many fellow Wicked nerds in this audience, right, girls? Totally. Yeah. So I love it. Wow. Okay. Really committed. Fantastic.
You can go to Target. You can go to Walmart. You can go to anywhere. Actually, Starbucks.
Jon, why don't you tell us your history with Wicked?
So I feel very lucky because I got to see it in San Francisco before it ever made it here when they were workshopping it. And I grew up in the Bay Area, and my parents would take us to musicals every weekend in the city. It was musical season, opera season, or ballet season. And I was at USC going to school, and my mom called me up and she's like, there's a new Stephen Schwartz musical. I was like, yes, I'll go. What is it? And I had no idea. So I feel very lucky that I had no context. And I remember being blown away by the story of these two women, by this relationship, this deconstruction of Wizard of Oz, which had such a huge impact on my life, wanting to be a filmmaker, but also immigrant parents coming here and chasing the American dream. It was always a part of the story that they told us. So that's how I started. And I remember thinking, wow, some person's going to make an amazing movie of this one day. They're so lucky. And I waited 20 something years saying, like, where is this movie coming? When are they going to do that? And so when I got the call, I felt very blessed.
And I think you've blessed us with I actually think it's one of the best musical adaptations I've ever seen. I really do. And the truth is, like, someone's going to make a great movie out of this someday. That wasn't a given. Someone might have made a disappointing movie out of this, but you did make a great one. In what moment in your career were you at when this opportunity came, and how did it come to you?
So I was finishing In the Heights, and yes, thank you. I love that movie. And it was during the pandemic. We were in lockdown. And someone was trying to send us a script for something, and Universal stopped it. And we were like, why? Why would Universal? And they called me and they said, well, we have something that we want to send you. That's not that. So it was very secretive, and they got it to me. And I talked to Mark Platt for a long time, and it was it was great because he really wanted to hear what I thought about it. I had been literally thinking about this all my life. I even had a list from when I was in college about the movies that one day I would love to make, and Wicked's number one on that.
Shut up.
No joke, in my handwriting, in my journal. It was pretty special. And it was during the pandemic, and my life changed when I did Crazy Rich Asians. I'd grown up in this business in a way because I did, thank you. Because I had done, all these movies, all these sequels, Step Up, and I was young. I was 28 years old when I did that. Step Up 3D, and like Justin Bieber, Never Say Never. And I never knew if I fully understood what I was doing, but I loved making stuff all the time, and I was learning the levers and all that. And there was a certain point doing that, and Now You See Me Too, where I felt like I had hit my 10,000 hours, and I was like, oh, I do belong here. I know what I'm doing, but what am I trying to say? And Crazy Rich Asians changed my life because I had to confront the thing that scared me more than anything, was like defining myself as an Asian filmmaker. To me, I was like, the moment I say I'm an Asian filmmaker, I'm just going to get Asian scripts and people are going to see me. It's like that burden to me was too much, and I didn't want to deal with that. But when we made it, it just freed me, and the people showed up. I never thought anyone would show up for it. So when you make something like that and you see the power of cinema, when you see the true power of people putting down money to go see something in the dark, and it changes a whole cast of people, how you see what beauty is, what a hero is. I can make fun of our own families, not someone else making fun of them. It changed how I wanted to make movies and what I wanted to spend my life doing. And I had my first child during that movie. And
he just had his fifth, right?
I did just have my fifth, which, crazy enough, my third just doing Wicked. So I've had 3 kids during Wicked, but that's a whole nother story.
Slow down.
I love, apparently.
Take a break from all of it.
So when Wicked came around, it was Crazy Rich Asians, In the Heights, which all felt very close to me. My growing up in an immigrant neighborhood. And Wicked, I was like, is that right? Is that the right next step for me personally? It's a little bit of an old school musical compared to In the Heights. And when I went through the text of it again, the words in Defying Gravity, something has changed within me. Something's not the same. I've read those words many times, but this time it like really hit deeply. I felt we were in lockdown. I felt like, I think that's what the whole world feels right now. Mm-hmm. The unknown of what's next. And it really made me think about where we are and what courage that we may need to just keep going forward into the scary unknown. And that's when I knew, like, oh, I have to do this.
There's a moment near the end of the movie where Elphaba, kind of in the midst of Defying Gravity, she takes off and she plummets. Yeah. And it's a moment that's not in the play, where it's self-doubt, right? You talk about hitting a point where you believed you belonged. Yeah. I'm just curious, and then we can unpack the kind of nitty-gritty of the making of the movie, but where did that moment, this idea of seeing her younger self, hearing the voices of doubt as she plummets, at what point in the process did that come about?
It came pretty late in the process. I mean, every musical number, Winnie Holtzman and Stephen Schwartz, who I worked with on Zoom for a year, going through every line and every lyric. In terms of the musical numbers, though, I said, so just write it broadly and let me get there and let me design them when I know how I can see it more thoroughly. And so for every number, I would walk our whole production in. I'd bring all our heads of departments in. There'd be like 30 people out there, and then I would walk them through the number on every lyric. And this happens, and this happens. And it was a good exercise because I could tell the story out loud, and I could feel when it was not working or when something was just sort of like, what is he talking about? And when it came to Defying Gravity, it was the final one, and it's the end of movie 1. And it has to feel emotionally satisfying that it is the end of something, not the middle of something. Mm-hmm. And when we did it as just, and it's difficult anyway, because you want to be so close to her. Every word is important. And yet you want the scope and the flying around. You want to feel that. And when I presented it, I didn't have the fall. And it felt like it was just the end musical number of a musical adaptation. It didn't follow what we were doing in the rest of the story. And so I remember our David Nixay, our line producer, said that to me, and it really like bothered me. And I kept like, yeah, why does she earn flight? Why is she flying? Why she just jumps out a window and there she has it? And as soon as we thought, oh, what if she falls? What if she's not ready? She thinks she's ready. We all think we're ready when we're revved up. But when you have to find the purpose of it, when she falls, as she's falling, she hears her whole life. The whole movie flashes in our mix all around us. And then she sees that little girl that she was, that little boy that I was, that when we get the power to do something about it, that we can save ourselves and we can save, when I was having kids at the time, still having kids, but, so to me, grabbing the broomstick had purpose. So then when she goes up and she says, it's me, the it's me means like she knows. And it just gave it wasn't a defense. It was an offense. And that to me changed the whole thing. That allowed me to go backwards and say, okay, if she knows she can fly in some way, then we need to plant flying somewhere, which we went back to Wizard and I and added flying there. And then, okay, well, if the broomstick's not pulling her and carrying her everywhere, because that would be awkward flying anyway, then what is it? Oh, she has a relationship with nature. She has to be very close with nature. She speaks with it, and that means she could have a relationship with gravity itself. And so these are the little questions that you don't necessarily have to ask when you're watching a show. But in our movie, it forced us to ask a lot of these real practical questions of where Elphaba was headed in order for the movie to feel satisfying.
It occurs to me as you talk about that the "It's Me" lyric, which, is iconic already because it's coming off of seeing her younger self.
Yeah.
It's really about an integration of self.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
It's the younger self who felt marginalized and doubted and unworthy of love.
Yep.
And now she feels worthy of love. And that is the source of power.
Yeah. I always see it as like the jellyfish thing, where in order to, the jellyfish moves by going in and out. And in order to kick out, you have to like suck in and come into everything and know everything you have. And you have those moments in your life where sometimes you're out there and sometimes you got to like find yourself again and hide and just like connect again. And so this is like, we had too much out. We needed to like get her back to herself.
And how, I think one of the reasons, I'm sure you guys agree, I think so many times a musical is transposed to the screen and it's like, yeah, it's still great songs and love the characters, but really feel like Wicked elevates the material by using a specifically cinematic directorial language, starting with, so most globally, first of all, on an action movie, I know you've done action, I've done action, there's storyboards, there's post-viz, there's stunt viz. On a musical, let's just talk about the musical numbers.
Yeah.
What was your process? How did that iterate so that you were ready to shoot?
So, so I write it all down first.
Like in prose?
In prose. Okay. Yes. And I'll present it. Then no one will ever read those prose. I just present it and they'll write notes on it because I like to like tell it like a story. She comes in and she says these words and I draw little boards. I mean, they're like stick figures.
Do you draw well?
No. Okay. No, not at all. I used to think I did, but no, I don't. But I think I can communicate with it, and I'll sometimes do it on a keynote, and I'll walk everybody through it, and I work really closely with my DP Alice Brooks, who's amazing. Yeah. I've worked with her since
gorgeous
college.
Movie, gorgeous work.
So we have a very close relationship. She can call me out on my. She can say that's terrible, or we can find something, or we can say, hey, you're trying too hard. Chris Scott, who's our choreographer, I've worked with for 15 years, who I love very deeply. So we really work together on some of this stuff because we've known each other for so long. So when I present this, then Chris will start to think of movement and he'll get a little skeleton crew and start to just do, not even to the music, just start to create movement that may communicate that, so it's
just like shot on a cell phone. Yeah. Super lo-fi, homemade.
Totally. Okay. And that's for like Munchkinland. Hey, what's the culture of Munchkinland? How do they move in this? And how does people at the Oz Dust? And he even did animals in the Oz Dust just to give me just a sense. And it's just little, splats of paint really for us. And Alice will ask me, okay, what are the images? What are like key images that you see? Oh, the hands grabbing, this moment when she's in the air and she's whatever it is, seeing herself young, those images, then she starts to board properly. And I'll go into those meetings as well. And we'll start to create that. So, and as Alice and I start to hone in on sort of how this all cuts together, I cut it together in Final Cut on my little laptop. And I will then go into rehearsals and see what we're doing, and I'll cut those videos into that. So we start to have this hybrid thing coming. It's coming together. Sometimes if it's a stunt, for instance, in Defying Gravity, I don't know the language of the actual stunt. So stunts in this movie started doing the language of the flight. And they have their stunt team, because Cynthia was maybe there yet, but just training on little things at that point. So they start doing these things so we could create a language. That's the most important thing that I think we had to find, is there's just not language for a lot of this stuff. So we made a menu. Oh, here's the loop-de-loop is what we called it. Oh, here's the twirl landing or whatever. And here's the falling leaf. And so now I have a menu of that. And so then now I look at my boards and I say, okay, I want to take a falling leaf and put it there. And I want to take that thing. And I actually want to match when the green girl gets lifted, baby, when she gets lifted, what's the thing that can lift her? And then she falls back and she faces us. Okay, that's actually that's that piece. And so I start to cut that in. And then I bring everybody together and we start to see what that is. And as I work with Paul, our amazing costume designer, and Nathan Crowley, our production designer, we start to map out, like, okay, if they have to be on the bottom, how do they get to the top? So that it all just starts to just get made. We just start jumping in there. And that is separate from the actors who then come in. And we know this could all get wiped out in a second. We all are okay with that. And sometimes we'll bring in Cynthia and Ari and we'll say, today, you're going to learn music. We haven't had enough rehearsals to tie how the music actually plugs into our movie. But you're going to work with Steven and you're going to learn don't get too caught up in it. You're going to learn the songs and and just exercise your muscles again. And you're going to go to dance rehearsals. These are not necessarily the moves in the thing, but let's get your muscle memory going. And so everybody has to trust each other that we're going to inch forward. Nothing's going to be locked down, and they really have to trust. So they go start doing that stuff. Then we start to see what they're doing, and then we start to plug those things in. And I'm having rehearsals with them in my office. They didn't like to sit in chairs. They like to sit on the floor. So we're sitting on the floor and we talk through each number. And as we talk through each, not singing it, we find the little moments like, oh, that's.
Are you talking through it with the lyrics, or are you talking about the scene?
Well, we do that, and then we'll read it out loud, not sung, but just talked,
like as
dialogue. So, and at this point, they've already recorded pre-records just to have for rehearsals. And so then we're taking those pre-records into the dance rehearsals. Sorry, this is really long, but it's a long process. And then we're so then we're taking those and they're now, they start to sing little moments, but we're carving out beats that we're like, that's a moment. When then I go in with Chris and them, and then we start to carve those out in the dance. And then I leave them alone to start to mold that. And then we all start to come together. They go back and do the pre-records again to just get, at least so that we can be in the same zone. And everything just starts to come together from there. And of course, when we get on set, it's a whole nother deal because everything changes. But that's sort of every number goes through that. And that's not including the giant things we have to build, like a giant, we call it the tornado wheel, that we didn't get till 2 weeks before. So we didn't know what kind of dancers.
For the loop-de-loop?
This is for Dancing Through Life.
Got it.
The turning. The loop-de-loop is her flight.
That was crazy. Dancing Through Life, that choreography and that fucking set design is sick. Thank you for reminding me. That sequence, just the notion of this underwater kind of setting, but no, Dancing Through Life in the library, right? Yes. Where did that kind of circular idea come from? Because that is one of the most kind of astonishing visuals I've seen in a movie in a while.
Well, we wanted everything in Oz was circular, and we had to create, in order to create the reality of a relationship with real stakes, we realized we had to define this to our audience that this is a real place. This is not a dream. And because everyone can assume that this was a dream, this is based off of Wizard of Oz. So in the beginning of this movie, we drop into the most famous crime scene with the water. And it's almost like film noir. It's almost black and white, and you see the famous hat, and then we burst through and we see the landscape, and the landscape is supposed to say, really, to me, like, this is a real place, not an image. And we get into the ground with the munchkins as they're going in, as they're running across. So when we get to a place like Shiz, we have to create history. What is this? How long has this, if she's going to care about animals, how long has this university been here? Oh, this was built by animals. Oh, the education was run by the animals. Okay, in L. Frank Baum's book, it said everything was connected by waterways. So this school is going to be connected by a waterway, which Universal was like, really? You're going to build a waterway in? And yes, we got it. Nathan's a little troublemaker. He knows how to get the things. And so we build everything, and everything if you look at this, the walls and the things, it's all nature. Plants, hand-painted plants, animals on the columns, which then gets us to the library, which everything is circular and twirly all around. And to me, Elphaba is going to be the crack in all of that. We always call it the Z in Oz. Everything is O right now, but she's going to crack everything and have the sharp edges, which is not pleasant, but is necessary. And so if Fiero was here to sort of break the rule abiding students here, then he would this wheel would play a part of that, and it's a little bit nod to 2001, it's a little bit nod to Royal Wedding, but I love this sort of turning idea. The ladders do make a Z at some point, but that was that he was going to come in here and get people to loosen up their joints. So the choreography goes along with that and stuff. So that thing was very expensive, and insurance did not want us to do it, especially
you're
putting
saying
our
you didn't have it till late, so you had to rehearse it on a proxy circular device?
Yeah, we had to not really rehearse it. We had to pretend. We had a little model. We had models of everything. We had this giant war room with every scene, and you could feel the color change in every part of the rainbow all around you. So we could walk through it, and we had, 25 3D printers. So everything was printed out in front of us. You could walk through our movie, and in that we had this model that actually turned. They made the miniature, so we could use the iPhone to turn it and get there's certain effects. In the Heights, we did a rotating building, so we had a little bit of experience of what you can do with gravity. The question was, what kind of dancers are we putting in this thing? Are you getting parkour people? Are you getting like Cirque du Soleil people? Are you getting hip hop b-boys? Like, what are you doing in there? And we didn't quite know that. And thank God for Chris. He was very stressed until that 2 weeks. And of course, everyone's trying to delay the building of this thing, because the moment you pull the trigger, it's a very expensive thing. Yeah. So now this thing is there, and I'm like, we don't know if it's gonna work. And so Chris just starts working with them. I start looking at the stuff, giving him notes, and we realize we need parkour people and b-boys, and that's sort of where it all. And Alice is now getting in there with her camera, and now she's like, oh well, iPhone's great, you can turn it real well, but what about an Alexa 65?
Yeah.
So then we're like, oh, and then we have these ladders that can cut your head off if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And now insurance is saying you can't put Johnny Bailey in there. We're like, we have built this thing. So we're like, we can do it. We had to force them to say, we're going to show you exactly what he does and how safe it is and where the thing. Of course. And it's a giant machine. So it's not like a dialed in, like turn it to a 6, turn it to a 2, and here, turn it to a 3. No, it's guys like just turning it. So you're like, okay. And sometimes we had some practical stuff in the Heights and sort of puppeteering stuff. And we were able to put dancers in there because they know rhythm. So they can go lyrically to what we need, to the counts. But we couldn't do it here because of safety reasons. So we had dancers like tapping them on the shoulders to tell them when to turn. And we had to figure out the speed.
Are you saying you had a dancer consultant by the mechanical team
now
giving them tempo?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Because it was just too dangerous without that. Anyway, that's a lot of stuff. But that's, for that one little moment, that's, and it was important to us because everything in Oz, is what we realized, has to have delight. We had to define what Oz is. So in Alice in Wonderland is supposed to sort of confuse you to insanity, and Neverland is supposed to be a place where your childhood and what you think of as a child. So then what is Oz? And for me, Oz is a place of delight and distraction. So you don't have to think about the hard things. Oh, whatever your heart's desired, follow the yellow brick road. Don't think about anything. Everyone stay safe. And to me, that was so every time a costume, every time a set piece, we're like, well, what's the delight in here? It's a library. It was written in rows. And we're like, don't do rows. What if they were in circular things? What if we were going to have this whole grass inside where people read books upside down, like on little hills and things like that? We had to save some money.
I'm actually feeling such retroactive stress of your line producer.
Yes. They're like, it's not written in the script. I was like, I know, but I presented it in my thing. And they're like, what?
I told you the story.
Yeah.
It was in my story. And what about, so you described the rehearsal process. What were you rehearsing? So first did you rehearse the musical numbers in the sets before you shot extensively? Because it feels like, it just feels incredibly thoroughly designed, shot by shot. Yes. So how did you transition from the floor of your office to the shooting floor?
Yes. This is the first musical or even dance thing that I've actually had time to rehearse in the space itself. Thank God that Mark Platt has done this before, and he understood that we needed that time. So we had sometimes 3 days, because they also had to light the place. The bigger the sets you make, the more lights you need, and the more costumes. So everyone needed more time to get those things. So we built that into our schedule. That said, those were usually run by, especially with the tornado wheel, by that mechanic, not necessarily the scene itself.
Yeah.
So we had rehearsals where I'd go in and in our rehearsal studio, and then we would go to the set and we do it there when the machine wasn't working. And then 2 days before, as they're sort of pre-lighting, we would go in and have a quick run through. It was never enough, but it was enough that we could, I don't know, save a few hours on that first day.
And one thing that I noticed in the movie a lot is that you use your camera to actually augment the humor, the little kind of quick tilts when Ariana maybe does a gesture. I've actually not seen the visual language kind of add to the humor in that way. Was that a conversation that you had in prep with Alice, your DP? Was it something that you found on the day? How much of that was by design?
Some of those were by design.
Sort of the whimsy of the visuals.
We always wanted to have fun with it. We didn't want it to be self-referential in any way. I mean, the closest we get to that is when they look at the camera. They don't necessarily break the fourth wall, but they're looking at us in certain angles. But in what is this feeling? The split screen was the closest thing, and that I was very self-conscious about that, whether we can do that. But it felt really necessary in that number. And as soon as we started to play in that, then we felt like we could extend that play a little bit. So when she lifts her hands, that was not in the storyboards or anything like that, or in rehearsals, but we couldn't actually fit we're anamorphic. We can't get it. So I told Carson, our A camera operator, just tilt up with her. So we maybe have done that 2 of the 10 takes. And when we saw it, we laughed and we're like, we can help this. So we just kept going. When she points down and we whip down, and he points up, and he's very good at rhythm. He has a great, you can't always do that with every camera operator who doesn't have rhythm. He got it. And so we were like, all right, we can do this.
You also had mentioned to me, there's some videos out there proving this, because I thought this was astonishing that 90-something% of those vocals were recorded live on set while you shot. True?
Yeah, absolutely true.
Yeah, which is just amazing.
Simon Hayes, our mixer on set, he's a warrior. I think people know him. He's very, very good. He would yell at everybody if you were too loud. And Cynthia would sing, and in the forest she would go, hands touch eyes me, and then these birds who had made nests in the rafters of the warehouse would start to sing, and it would ruin this take. And so we heard these loud sounds of birds of prey. We're like, what the heck is that? And it was Simon who was playing these sounds to scare the birds.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
And Cynthia got really mad.
Guys, we're learning stuff at the DGA tonight. Yeah. I feel like we're taking a lot of juicy tidbits home.
Because I don't have to share it with actors talking about things.
They get enough glory.
Cynthia was like, what is that sound? And we're like, it's the sound because we're scaring the birds. Like, clear for your voice. She's like, no, I'm with the birds. You do not play that sound. And he was like, it's for the art. She's like, I'm with the birds. So he couldn't.
It's very character appropriate.
I mean, she was in Elphaba, no doubt. So we couldn't play it. We just said, we'll figure it out. And there's some birds on her track, but.
I think we have, we just have a few more minutes. So I wanted to ask you, is there any part of the movie, sequence, scene, what have you, that was tricky to crack until late in the process? Any scenes where you're in that edit room and it's never quite gelled until late?
I mean, Defying Gravity was something we always had to chip away at, because we're breaking up the song, the most famous song of Wicked. And while we were always following our instincts of like, we have to tell the story, finish the emotional story that we've gone. I don't care if the song is in the way or not, like finish that, give them the space to stare at each other, to say, are you coming? To have her take her time to shuffle around in her heels, to go get the sheet, to shake it off, like give it the time. And when she ties it, and it was a moment that if it was written down, we would have laughed at it. But when Cynthia winks at her, that's like a just thing that happens. And they're both trying not to cry. And it's those moments you just have to let breathe. And you also have to have the moment when she turns around with the broomstick and she's the Wicked Witch of the West. And you also have to have her go out the window. Like, these were all very important things. Did we kick the tires every 2 weeks and be like, are we making the right choices? Is this as sharp as we can be? Are we giving it enough room? But could we just get a little air out? We did every version because we did not want to make the mistake there. The other thing was effects were going to take long. Her cape, when she actually flew in the thing, so she's flying and singing live.
Crazy.
She had to train for a year to figure out that. And I don't even know how she did it because I was prepared with the pre-records. And she's like, I'm doing it. And
in a harness. Actors don't even like being in a harness and talking.
She did all her stunts.
Wow.
So she's, and by the way, this was also, we were supposed to shoot it with 10 days left in the shoot, and then the strike happened. So she had to hold on to this emotion that she's building up for 6 months to come back and do it. And I call her every 3 weeks. I would call her and she would just cry. She's like, I don't know if I can hold on. I don't know if I can keep doing this. I was like, I think you need to let it go for a little bit. It's going to be a long time. And she never let it go. And so day of we're shooting, she was like trained. She took her like 1 day to get trained back up and she was ready to rip. And when she did that, all you want to do is be here. So the negotiation of when her voice propels us and begs us to go big. And when it begs us to pull towards her, we were going back and forth for many, many, many times.
Well, I think the movie really is masterful at navigating that epic and that intimate. I think in general, that's one of the achievements of the film. So thank you for making such a beautiful movie.
Thank
you all for being here.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America.